A
I'll turn it down.
little bit.
Hello and welcome to Learning Reimagined. I am Allison Dampier and with me is Sandy Gamba. Good morning, Sandy. How are you today?
Good morning, Allison. Good. All is good. I'm really excited. And I'm really looking forward to this new launch that we're doing, reviewing our books. I know you and I both read a lot, and you have such a plethora of books to select from that I'm really happy about the one you picked for today.
Yeah, I do. I read a lot. Listeners, we want to let you know with summer, today is the first day I think all of the kids are out of school and looking at a nice long summer break. We really do a lot of reading during summer, we being Sandy and myself, and I'm encouraging everybody to do the same. And so what we wanted to do every few podcasts is do a book review. We haven't done this yet before, so this is our first time. And so if you have any book suggestions you would like us to read, please send them our way. Of course, I always am looking for fun little campy beach reads. However, that's not what the purpose of the podcast is going to be. We're trying to find books that build us in some way, books that make us thoughtful, insightful, just encourage us and challenge us. And today's book does all of that. It was a book that was recommended to me by one of my childhood friends who is now she has her MBA. She is just like a bigwig in her company, and she's amazing. And I always lean on her for leadership advice and guidance and that sort. And she recommended this book, and then I started it, and I then sent it to everybody I care about. So the name of the book is Radical Candor. It is by Kim Scott. And what really grabbed me with this book was the subtitle, Radical Candor, be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity. Doesn't that just speak to everybody?
Honestly. And the more I think about it, we spend a third of our life at work. The average person spends over 90,000 hours at work. And so as important as it is to pour our best self into our family, we're also spending so much time at work that I love this book because it truly just hones into these great ideas and concepts that we think we do, but it really kind of breaks it down.
Breaks it down,
that we
right.
should do.
And because we focus so much in this podcast, I think for all of our 1.5 episodes, it's really been about kids and making, helping and supporting our children and our students. We've never really focused on us as adults for an entire podcast. And that's what this book really does.
It does because having a happy work life, it helps our general happiness and our life outcomes. And so that, of course, will affect our home life. And
exactly.
I think it just really covers a lot of great points. So I'm excited about today. Thank you.
Yeah, I am too. It's I'm excited to talk about it. And if you have read this book, you know how amazing it is. If you have not read this book, I would highly suggest ordering it, but then pulling up there's a book club that goes along with it, which I think is super fun. And so Sandy and I will be going through a bit of that. We won't go through the whole thing, but just give you really a taste of it and give our overall summary. Radical Candor, it's a crash course on how to be a great manager. In it, the former Google leader, Kim Scott, shares her philosophy about how to be an empathetic and results-oriented leader. If you're new to management, you'll find a wealth of useful tidbits that will help you avoid common mistakes. Sandy and I are not new to management. However, I always find it really good to go back and review, even though we've been doing this for 16 years. The environment changes in the workplace. The obvious is COVID and the pandemic and everybody going and working from home.
The transition.
I was looking for the word distant. Everybody working distantly. And so that's really changed the environment. But I also believe that there's been so much over the past just 10 years, with the Me Too movement, with Black Lives Matter, with so many social movements that have gone through. That's something that we have to stay on top of and be very cognizant of as, we are defining the culture within our own company.
Yeah, it's
So
it's evolving constantly,
Mhm.
and making sure that we're aware of that. And you used a really important word, empathy. I don't know about you, Allison, but I think what helps me be a better boss is because I had a horrific boss once, and I learned exactly what I didn't want to be like.
Mm,
So I just never want to have people feel the way that person made me feel when I was working under that person's leadership.
mhm,
So I just, that and reading all of these books have really helped me become a better manager, a better leader.
mhm.
And, you never really arrive, because I think as long as we're open to hearing new concepts and molding our way of, just working with folks, I think that really benefits not only that relationship, but the rapport company wide.
I agree. And the part that really spoke to me was just being empathetic, but yet remaining results oriented.
And
Um,
honest.
and honest. And I go back to our podcast with Alex Judd, where he shared the principle: unspoken expectations is front loaded resentment.
I love that one.
And I do too. I use that all the time. That thought is always, it's never far from the tip of my tongue. And I share it with my kids, I share it with my husband, I share it with people in the workplace. Spell it out, be honest and straightforward initially. And that is something as a leader I've struggled just as a leader, because I'm always afraid of hurting people's feelings.
Or you
I
assume things. You assume, okay, I think they get it. They must be
Mhm.
on my same wavelength. But you're right.
Right.
I even had the same conversation just yesterday with my daughter. She's 20. And I'm like, set your expectations clear from the very beginning. And so it just allowed me to have different words
Mhm,
to
mhm,
share with her the concept of,
mhm.
you'll have clarity, and then that will eliminate the resentment if your expectations are not met.
Right, right. And that's a quote that I pulled from the book is how resentment builds. For every piece of subpar work that you accept, for every missed deadline you let slip, you begin to feel resentment and then anger. You no longer just think that the work is bad, you think the person is bad. This makes it harder to have an even keeled conversation. You start to avoid talking to that person at all. I've been there. I've
Mhm.
absolutely been there. Oh, it's just one time. Okay, I'm gonna let it go. Oh, well, it happened again. Oh, they're late to this meeting. And, and then I'm like, I don't want to even talk to this person because I think I might just blow up.
Mhm.
And that is no way to be a leader. That is no way to run a company. The best way to prevent yourself from building resentment about an employee is to never accept late or subpar work. Give the feedback instantly, and it's
Mhm.
up to excuse me, it's up to them to approve. If you keep letting things slide, you're going to develop an unhealthy attitude about that person.
That goes back to the author, Kim Scott. She really hones in on being honest and being able to address that from the very, very beginning, because otherwise we do run into this ongoing, okay, I'll be empathetic, but then it goes beyond empathy. It
Right.
does. And it says, to be a good boss, you must care about your employees and encourage them to do their best work. So by encouraging them to be their best, you can call them out, if you will, if they are late, or maybe it's great work, but then they understand there's that expectation,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
you're being honest from the very beginning.
Right. And by setting the expectations high, you're going to have better results, and it values the person. I remember there was a study done. Gosh, I'm terrible with the details, but let me give you the gist of it. I read about it when I was going through my teacher ed program. And there was a study done where they took a teacher and told her the students' IQ scores. However, they weren't truly the students' IQ scores. They were their locker numbers, something ridiculous like that. So she got this class of kids and she thought all of them were in the, the top tier quartile of IQ scores. So how is that going to affect how she treats those students? And that's what the study was based upon. And then linking that to the results of the kids over the course of the year. So for an entire year, this teacher is thinking that her kids are, gifted
creme de la
and
creme. Yeah.
creme de la creme. And guess what? They all improved. They all achieved more. They all, you raise that bar, they're going for that bar. They're going to strive. You treat a person with that type of integrity and respect and expectation, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go for it. They're going to reach that and exceed what would have been the expectation had she known their true IQ scores.
Oh, Allison.
And so it was just, it's fascinating. And it's, if you keep that going throughout your life, can you imagine if we put that forward with all of the people that we're dealing with? I know that you can do this much more.
I'll tell you firsthand. I did my primary, my K through middle school back east, public school child, and I was just average back east. My parents moved cross country. We landed in Southern California, and all of a sudden I was put in honors classes and AP courses. And so I never saw myself that way. But when I entered high school, I was on this accelerated track. And I thought, oh my God, what happened as I crossed the country? It was just two different schools of mind. And I had been now performing at this rate where now I looked at myself differently. My reflection was the same in the mirror, but all of a sudden my teachers, my classes, my curriculum, I then was part of the ASB, the student government, I became a different person. And all because of, like you said, the perception has changed. And it truly, I have no idea where I would be if I just continued thinking that I was average. Not that I was unhappy. I never remember being unhappy, but just that perception truly changed the fabric of who I am.
That's so interesting.
That's something that I experienced. And it's just so incredible how you can do that, how people have that effect.
Yeah, it's really insane. But it's so important for us to remember how setting those expectations really affects change.
Absolutely.
Another thing that Kim Scott talks about in this book, yes, it's extremely important to set high expectations, but you have to build trust. It's the most difficult and important thing you can do as a manager, and it's to establish a trusting relationship with the people who report directly to you. With trust, you empower. With trust, you can forgive. With trust, you can better manage the ups and downs of professional work. And another book that I want to talk about in our podcast, I've referenced it many times over the years, is Permission to Screw Up.
I love
that one. This is a book by Kristen Hadid, and it's I give it to everybody who is starting a new job. But what it talks about the trust that you are giving the people in your care, and having that trust, having the ability to really go for it, knowing that, well, my manager is going to support me regardless. I know that if I really try hard and I fail, I still have the trust of my manager that everything will be okay. And I think that trust, it really changes the culture of your company. It's empowering.
It is. It builds a rapport. And like I said, we spend so much time in our work life that you build this incredible team, and it does become like family. And you rely so much on one another that if I hand off the baton to a new employee, I want them to feel like I hired you because I
Mhm.
know you're amazing and I know you can
Mhm,
do it, and
mhm.
finished off this race for us. And it really, I think, has proved very, very important for us. And as we,
I would
as
agree. And you
Mhm.
touched on something, they're talking about a family. And that's another thing she discusses is you don't keep it professional. You are professional in the workspace, but you're dealing with human beings who have feelings. And if you feel like you need to repress those feelings at your place of work, you start to feel alienated. So you'll hate going to work. You will you need to see people as human, or they won't feel free to be themselves. The quote I pulled from this little area was, "Caring personally is the antidote to both robotic professionalism and managerial arrogance."
Mhm.
The managerial arrogance really hits home.
It
I
does.
never want to be seen as above it all or too good to do the work. Um, or cold. I guess cold is the managerial arrogance is cold to me. And we've had that. We've worked with people who have that. I've worked in other jobs with people who have that. And that is the polar opposite of who I am and who I want to be. And so you can't, I like to be professional in the workplace, but I am also human. And I think that is incredibly important for all of us. And we
Yeah.
don't need to sit around and talk about everything that you did last night and all of your personal things. You don't need to go that far, but it's okay to say, oh, you guys, I had this goal set and I didn't make it.
Mhm.
I'm human. But I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep striving. I'm resetting my expectations and let them, talk it through. And we do that quite often in our, we have a Friday team meeting, and we talk about what works, what doesn't work. We talk about goals. We talk about failures. I think it's so important to learn from failures
Yeah.
and to just evaluate and reflect. You can learn, I think you learn more from failure than you do from success.
And building that, it really creates the culture that I believe we've strived so hard to do. And I feel so honored that we've been able to bring in a team of people where that has been very important to us, and getting to know them for who they are and what they can bring, and helping all of us have ebbs and flows in life. And it's okay to take a day to just regroup, because we all need it, all of us at
Absolutely.
one point.
Absolutely.
So,
And another thing is as people evolve,
yeah.
People change, people grow, and your relationships have to evolve with them. So if you care personally and you don't put people in the boxes and just leave them there,
Mhm.
it's important to have that time and invest in the person.
That brings up like 3 examples where we have to love somebody so much professionally that we help groom them to the next position, even though that means letting them go from a very effective and efficient team.
Yes.
And that part, it's like it's much like parenting, where you just have to kind of help them soar to that next place. And that's exciting, even though of course you're going to miss them because they leave a void in your
Right.
department, but allowing them to move on and help them through that. Absolutely.
I remember Dave Ramsey, he's another author and speaker that Sandy and I are big fans of. And Dave Ramsey, his interview process, his hiring process, excuse me, when he brings somebody in, he has a whole seminar just on hiring the right people.
It's intense. Yeah.
It's super intense. You go through, I don't even know how many different interviews and who you interview with. But before he makes a final decision on, a job offer, he and his wife go out to dinner with the individual, and if they have a significant other, with that person as well. And they have a dinner together. And it's, you don't get much more personal than that, having that, sharing a meal with a person,
Breaking
and
bread.
that person's people, breaking bread, it's so important. And it really, lets you see if you do gel, if you have, I'm not saying you have to be best friends, but you need to see that you are compatible. And it shows so much when you share a meal with somebody. And that's something we do as a company as well. We like to break bread together whenever whenever we have big team meetings all in the same area. It hasn't happened in a long time, thank you, COVID. But when we are together, it's very important, I think, just to go have a nice meal together, or share an experience together that is out of the office.
Yeah.
It builds that camaraderie, that trust, and it really does deepen those relationships.
It does. And it establishes a level of respect for who that person is, who they're bringing to the table, because we know that you spend a lot of time in the workplace. And so we want to be sure that we're empathetic again to their circumstances, and letting them know that we do care, not just about them, but about their circle, their family.
Yeah, it's vital, because as you said, I mean, 90,000 hours we spend, 40 hours a week at minimum, we are spending with these people. And you want these people to matter. You want them to support you, and you want to support them. And it just will make that portion of your life so much more fulfilling if you have a positive work environment and positive work relationships. Another thing that I really, this one was kind of tough, and it's more self-reflective, and also giving people the power to be reflective of you. It's the essential question. And when you are doing your reviews, when you're having, coffee with somebody, if you just having this question out there, is there anything that I could do or stop doing that would make it easier to work with me? And that is just like standing there naked. Just hit me with it. Tell me what I could be doing better or differently to make your life here in the office better. And to be open to that type of constructive criticism, to be that vulnerable, there's nothing more human than that. That makes you so incredibly real to the people interested into your leadership. And that, but looking at that also, what a great opportunity that is for you as a leader to grow.
It's priceless. Have you ever had a supervisor, a manager, a leader tell you that?
Never, ever.
The best,
because I've always worked under the managerial arrogance. That is why.
Exactly. And I too, and that's the one that I knew that I didn't want to be anything like. But I did have an incredible manager who shared that exact verbiage with me.
Wow.
And I was fresh out of college. It was right after law school, and I was just so amazed that somebody would share that. Like, is this normal? And so I was caught off guard, but I remember that to this day, because it really gave me a new perspective of who I work for, and just how open he was to helping me excel. So it was just really insightful. And for Kim Scott to bring that up, it truly is something so rare and so hard to do, honestly, but so pivotal.
It is. I think the first time is really, it's like, and you know what, and there's actual certain people that I'd be afraid to ask it of in the past. We kind of have a tenuous work relationship. Do I want to open myself up to that? Because he or she may be very brutal. I mean, given the opportunity. Do you have a go-to question for soliciting feedback?
I think because I had my boss do that with me years ago, I've incorporated that into my conversations with those that I'm leading, that I'm managing. So I do ask that. And I think because I try so hard. Something else that Kim Scott brings up are how much we can benefit from 10 minutes of focused listening. And I think this question falls into that, because you really, truly cannot block yourself from hearing what that person's going to share with you. So it's focused listening, making sure you're not going to interject as much as you may want to, just because it's a human reflex to say, wait a minute, I don't do that, or be defensive. You must be open and listen to what they have to share. So the 10 minutes of focused listening is something that I've definitely tried to incorporate.
So how does that work? Do you like set up a time to talk to somebody, or is it just something mentally that you
I think it's setting up consciously just listening for the art of listening to what they have to say. You know how sometimes you're talking to somebody and you feel like they're not listening because they're trying to compose a response. And so that is what the importance of just hearing them out. And I think that that's extremely appreciated because we get very busy. There's hundreds of emails that hit our inbox, there's phone calls. So to take a moment, step away from your office space and just say, let's connect. And that adds the human component.
Agree. Yeah. I there's a statement, you want to listen to understand, don't just listen to respond.
Yes. Yes.
And you can tell when you're talking to somebody and they're listening to respond. And you didn't hear a word I just said.
Right.
You're in your mind already just trying to come up with an argument or a counter statement. You're not listening to my words.
Right.
And
you're not creating an honest work environment at that point. You're now on a different track. It's not a healthy one for a work environment.
No, it's really not. And you also mentioned part of what you really enjoyed about this book was looking at the people in your work that are under your supervision. You're grooming them or building them up for their next job, for the next step in their career. So you begin facilitating, or do you begin facilitating career conversations with your direct reports as a way of caring personally and helping them map out their career trajectories?
Yeah, I think that's pretty vital because you want to help the person grow and be happy, and that's fulfilling. And so it's a very unselfish thing to do, because I mentioned earlier, they might be your rock star, your superstar. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, the differentiation of those two. But that's somebody that will get the job done. So losing somebody like that is hard because you can rely on that person. But then you don't want to limit them and keep them from fulfilling their hopes and dreams. So whether it's growing and grooming them for your own company, or even helping them get connections. I know Kim Scott mentioned that in her workspace, seeing them and introducing them to another colleague or having them shadow in their dream job. It's just, it comes full circle. Life truly comes full circle, and they will remember that. And it will come back to you in such great fortune.
Absolutely. You mentioned rock stars or superstars. I don't remember which one it was. What are the terms that Kim Scott uses in her book, and what the description of those people are? And you'll hear them and go, oh, that's so-and-so in my office. That's so-and-so in my office.
It is. So we've all heard of those terms, the rock star and the superstar, two different types of employees. So we need both of them to be on a successful team. Our superstars are those that need challenges and they want to just keep growing and going, and you can't feed them fast enough. They just love everything that you're teaching them, and they see the bigger picture. They want to grow beyond your department, impact change on the next department, and they go fast. So you can't handhold them too long, or else they will leave the company because they're not being fulfilled. Your next one is the rock star, and these folks are solid, they're loyal, and they have a passion for their job, but they're very happy because they found a groove. They know what they do, they love what they do, and they are not looking for that next position. And knowing that and identifying that
Mhm.
You help them soar in their own space.
Mhm.
So just, you don't want to stifle those two. You don't want to confuse those two folks, because you will lose them. And yet they're
Mhm.
such assets to any team.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, not everybody wants to go up the corporate ladder, and they're very happy having a job description and someone to report to,
Mhm.
some people to supervise, and that's what they want. They want to be just uber efficient at their job and then go. Some people are really like, they are climbing, and they want to be at the top.
Mhm.
And we need both.
We need both.
We really need both.
And when you listen to them, you know what they want. So
Mhm.
that's a really critical component. You must listen to your employees, the people around you, and how you can better serve them and help them. Because
Mhm.
if you miss that need, they will leave, and
And
you'll,
yeah, and that's something that I see that you do very, very well. When you do your one-on-ones, you talk to them. What are your future goals? What are you looking for? And just recently you did that with somebody in our company, and you took her from one department, from your department, and moved her to another department because that was where her heart was.
and they
And it
love her, and I miss her. But it's
Mhm.
that piece of like, it's so exciting to see her soar. And we've had this story over and over
Mhm.
in our
We
company.
really have. And it's asking them. One of my favorite things to do when we're hiring somebody, I don't go as deep as Dave Ramsey, and maybe we should if we're looking for a more well, we're yeah. Anyway, I always ask somebody when I go to interview them, what is your dream job? What I before you come to meet with me, I want a write-up of your dream job. What does it look like? And what is important to you in that job? And it's so eye-opening. And not that we are hiring them for their dream job, but is our job going to be, or our position going to be, a stepping stone or provide any type of personal growth that will help prepare them for that dream job?
Mhm.
It's just a great conversation starter. It's very eye-opening to see what their goals are and what drives them, what their passion is. And if there's been a time where somebody came and gave me their dream job, and at the heart of it all, we were not a fit.
Right.
Looking at what this person was striving for, I'm like, wow, that's not even in our ballpark.
Right.
and
Right.
so, but it you have to take that time when you're hiring to make sure that it's not wasted time and wasted money. Because when you hire somebody, you invest a lot of personnel in training that person, and so that slows down the productivity on the other aspects of the company, because you're focused on this person, getting them caught up to speed and whatnot. So it's a major investment when you bring somebody into a company.
Mhm.
And if if their expectations are different, if their goals are not aligned, it's a big, big, big fat waste of money and time.
Well, that's a great transition, because we just talked about superstars and rock stars, and this is alluding to the falling star. So our
Nice.
falling star is something that as managers we dread. I know I personally dread, but sometimes they're not the right fit, as you said.
Mhm.
And we may not know that at the very onset, of course, the interview, and we all put our best foot forward. But inevitably, firing somebody is the toughest thing on
Mhm.
both ends, I
Right.
believe. Not only the person having to do it, but also the recipient. And
Mhm.
how does that, what's the best way to do that, if there is a best way to do that?
Mhm.
Kim Scott truly breaks it down, and honesty is at the center of that conversation.
Mhm.
And it actually comes full circle to what you mentioned earlier, Allison, in the sense that, were those expectations clear at the very
Right.
beginning? And if they weren't, can you make them clear and then provide a rubric to help this person? So working with them, but being radically candid with this candidate and let them know this isn't working out and why, and being as objective as can be will help through this process.
Yeah, and I think it all goes back to setting up those expectations, and it's vitally important to have that laid out and to refer to it often. We have started with our own company. We were a very small company, and when we started growing, it was just pretty much like throwing people to the fire. Just, okay, this is what we need next. We have to just keep going because it was so fast and furious that we did not lay out the framework very well with our expectations and job descriptions initially. And so some bad habits were made. And this book has really made us look at our processes and incorporate more one-on-ones, incorporate reviews, incorporate, you know, the specific job description and the expectation that goes along with it. Yes, you're required to do A, B, and C, but you're required to do it to this degree. It's a successful A, B, and C looks like this.
Right.
And to be as clear as possible and to refer to that as often as possible so that you don't get to the position where you're like, okay, for the past year, you haven't been doing your job.
Right.
And it's time to go. And in the chapter he talks, I think it was Bob, is the example. And, you know, she kept letting it slide with Bob. She let it slide. She let it slide.
Bob was really nice.
Bob was so nice.
And he did the minimum. I mean, he did check off those boxes, but he wasn't working his best work life.
Right. But she never said a word to him about it. She let him go because Bob is so nice. I don't want to hurt Bob's feelings.
And everybody highly recommended.
Bob. And everybody likes being around him. He's wonderful. He's fun, and he brings a good energy. And so then when push came to shove and it was like, enough is enough, we've got to deal with this, he just looks at her with eyes wide, like, why didn't you ever say anything?
Right.
And that really hits home, like, wow, this could have been avoided. We could have changed this trajectory had we had that conversation, you know,
such a
week in.
Point. Yeah.
For us, that was huge. You know, it's a benefit. Even though it's a hard conversation, it's better for that person than to blindside them. I would never. Go ahead. I would never do that to. We did it again. I would never do that to my kids at home.
Right.
You know, if they made okay, you need to clean your room, and I walk into their room, well, it's not really clean. That's okay. No, I say, excuse me. I still see crap on your floor. Your bed is not perfectly made. You're like, there's still dirty dishes on this is not clean.
Right.
Let's redo this and I'll come back in an hour. We don't give them the pass. You know, as a parent, you don't do that. Why would I do that? You know, and I don't love anybody more than my kids, you know, so it's not that I love them so much. I want them to be better. So in my office, you have to love them as much. You have to give them that respect and that honor to get it right.
Well, and what happens is if you do not set that precedent, then everybody else in the work environment sees that. And it's a very demoralizing event. It keeps getting worse because that resentment level will start to increase, even though Bob is amazing and we all love him. If he's not doing his work at that level of expectation, it becomes a hardship.
And then guess what? People aren't going to like Bob anymore. They're going to start.
They're not going to like him anymore. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's that was a really, I mean, that, and Bob, she talks about Bob throughout the book, but it hit you right off the bat, right? In chapter 1,
I
talk about Bob.
I have like 3 Bobs in my heart. Like it's so hard because having to go through that. It's not something I enjoy doing. I hated it, especially when it's somebody who's kind, and you just don't want to do that because you have that honest and caring piece. You want to display it all the way through your relationship with your employees.
Yeah, so that's another thing we've started doing is bringing people on as a trial. Work for us for 3 months, and then we can reassess to see if it's good for you and good for us.
Correct.
And I think that's you can't always do that in a company, but it's nice to have that almost like a safety net on both partners, on both ends, to make sure that it's right. But you have to set it up from the get-go with the expectations and the honesty. That is so important. And you can be honest and kind at the same time. It's a lesson I've had to teach my daughter since she was really little. Yes, that shirt is not cute on you. Really?
But I still love you.
I love you. She'll say, she was so honest with me from the get-go. Yeah, I don't like your haircut. Excuse me? She goes, well, you asked. You're right, I did. I did ask, but you don't need to be so blatantly honest all the time. But so then it was a really interesting conversation, because she just looks at me in her little 8-year-old eyes. Really? You want me to lie? You asked me a question, I told you the answer. And so then it was teaching her tact and compassion and a little bit of grace. Yes, you could be honest, but when you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, right. And so it's an interesting balance, because with her, very literal self, she just said, why ask me the question then?
Right.
If you don't want the honest answer, why would you ask me a question?
Well, and I think that definitely sums up Kim Scott's concept of having the empathy component and the honesty, and just not being afraid to be candid. And that's the radical candor. That's exactly what we need to try to strive for. And I think it will serve everybody super well, not just in the work environment, but in their friends and circle and family.
What is your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is reassessing my day in and day out, the importance of those 10 minutes of rapport with your employees, just really listening. I think with so much coming at us, we don't pause enough. And I think that those are valuable moments where you can connect and make sure that everybody's on the same expectation, just understanding what we need from one another. So I think it has proved well for our team, and it's just one of my biggest takeaways.
Yeah, I love it. And I think even if you're not in a managerial position, as a parent, as a teacher, these are all very helpful things in this book, very helpful principles. And going back to, again, with Alex Judd, if anybody talks to you, that you are a manager, you are a leader, if anybody depends on you. And in your world, you have people who depend on you. I don't care what your job is.
All the time, despite your title. Absolutely.
Right. You have people who depend on you. So this book is going to be helpful. I think everybody who reads it can get something out of it, regardless of your station in life, regardless of your work environment. Even as a parent, I found it so incredibly valuable. As a classroom teacher, I remember making it a goal when I had 35 kids in my classroom when I was teaching elementary level. My goal was to make sure I had a one-on-one conversation with every single student at least once throughout the week. And that sounds like, well, you're with them all day, it shouldn't be that hard. But when you're teaching and they're working, if you don't make it a priority, you might not have that opportunity. And I think that's how people slip through the cracks, and that's how people don't feel seen. And just like Marcus Buckingham, another leader that we love, he always talks about the importance of being seen. And I made that a priority with my students to, talk to them about something that isn't math and reading and science. Talk to them about something in their home, in their environment, in their personality, and their activities. Josh, how was your softball game yesterday? And Jessica, did you go ice skating yesterday? Or whatever it happens to be. You just create those types of relationships with the people that are in your care. And
I think you do that. I think that's part of your persona. Allison. I think that's what helps make you one of the amazing leaders, not just in the workplace, but in your peer circle, in your family life. Like, you truly invest in the people around you,
Mhm.
and they
I do.
gravitate to that.
I love people. I
Yeah.
really,
Mhm.
I remember, this is a funny story, and then we'll wrap up. But when we made a major move 12 years ago, and I was sad because I was leaving a core group of friends.
I remember
And
that well.
I'm sorry. And my daughter just said, "Don't worry, you'll make new friends." I said, "I know, but it's hard to create that whole new group again and to have, the people." And she said, "Mommy, you're just going to go take your phone, take your laptop, and go sit at Starbucks. And within a day, you'll have a table full of people." And it was the sweetest thing, because that's how she saw me, as somebody who just, I'm surrounded, well, by Starbucks and by people.
You're a
And
connector.
and it just, and now when I do, so it was really, I felt home when I finally was said, "Yes, I'm meeting a friend at Starbucks." Like, it was like such a, okay, I belong again. I feel like I have that connection, because I crave a personal connection to people. And this book has really helped me balance effective leadership and the personal connection. One doesn't supersede the other. It doesn't, I can have both. And that balance is so vital to be a great and effective leader, is to have the people compassion, but to have the honesty and the candor and the goal oriented, and that just honesty with your team. And I feel like Radical Candor really is a playbook to do all of that and to do it well.
And to have those boundaries highlighted in a healthy way.
Yeah, it really does. And it has been so effective for us. It has been so effective for me personally, in my personal life and in my work life. I think everybody around us benefits from Radical Candor. And I think Corey Michael, shout out to you. Thank you so much for introducing this book to us. And if you are going to read it, I highly suggest doing a quick Google and go to her website and she has these great questions. And I would, for a book club, and I would suggest reading it. If you are in charge of a team, get a team and start a book club with them, and start with this book, because it's so effective, and you can make changes today that make a difference for your workplace.
Indeed.
Yeah. So pick up your copy. And this is hashtag not an ad.
No.
This is just something we're passionate about. And I really would like a couple of the books that Sandy and I have been reading. We've read Permission to Screw Up by Kristen Hadid. That was one I read that a few years ago, and I absolutely love it. EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey. 9 Lies About Work by Marcus Buckingham. These are all books that we would totally suggest. And then a fun one that we did, Sandy, it was in the heart of the pandemic, when everybody was watching Cheer.
Yes.
The title of that book is Full Out. I think it was Full Out.
Yes, it is Full Out.
It's Full Out, and it's by oh gosh, her name is slipping from me. She is the cheer coach for the team out of Florida.
Oh my gosh, I have the book in my backpack.
I do too, but I don't have it in front of me. Monica.
Yes. Well
and
done.
It talks about how she's a cheer coach, but people kind of go, "Oh, she's just a cheer coach." No, she's a leader, and it's a fun read. And if you've watched the series, it's definitely worth a read as well. We may talk about that one coming up. And if you have any suggestions, go ahead and send us an email out to Learning Reimagined the Pod @gmail.com, or you can tag us in any of our social media, Learning Reimagined the Pod on Instagram, or you can just reach out to me personally, A Dampier at advantages-dls.com, or the same goes for Sandy S. Gamba at advantages-dls.com. And if you're listening We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't yet done it, please go to where you listen to your podcast and give us a rating, 5-star preferably, and link and follow. That would be wonderful. So thank you guys so much for listening. Sandy, thanks for the conversation. I love talking leadership with you.
Thank
always.
you.
And let me know what books you're picking up next.
All right. Thank you.